Economics for Everyone, Micro and Macro by Stanley Thuku Waithaka. An economic system. An economic system is an organization which aims at allocation of the scarce resources to satisfy the unlimited wants, i.e., the mechanism of allocating the scarce resources. It aims at addressing the basic economic problem, that is the problem of allocating scarce resources to satisfy the unlimited wants. Note, the word system refers to many activities aimed at achieving one goal. In this case, allocation of scarce resources to satisfy our unlimited wants. That is the goal. Now, when we are looking at economic systems, we are looking at a large area like a country, and what we are looking at is how does this country allocate its scarce resources. Resources are scarce everywhere. Resources in Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana, they are limited. And their wants of these countries' people are unlimited. So how do these countries or economies deal with this? There are basically three types of economic systems. One being the traditional economic system, the other one the command economic system, and the other one the market economic system. The fourth one is a mixture of the above three, which is called a mixed economic systems. Starting with the traditional economic system. Traditional. This is the oldest economic system of allocating resources. The allocation of resources is governed by custom. When we talk about an traditional economic system, let us visualize the Stone Age era. During the Stone Age era, resources, just like today, were still limited, and the wants of the people then were unlimited. Men did what their fathers did, and women did what their mothers did. The system, therefore, had to deal with the basic economic problem. And therefore, this system had to address the question of what? That is, the question of what to produce. And during this time, what was being produced was produced according to custom. There was hunting and gathering, and this was according to custom. And that is how they address the question of what. The question of how, that is how to produce what they produced, again, they produced what they produced according to custom. They used the same techniques of production as their ancestors. The hunting and gathering was done according to custom. Men did what their fathers did, and women did what their mothers did. And the question of whom, that is, who was to get the goods produced, Again, it was determined by custom. The people who got these goods that were produced were members of the family. Production during this era was subsistence production, that is, production for home consumption by the family members and not for sale. And just like today, the question of distribution again had to be addressed. This is the question of allocation of wealth. Who got the wealth? Wealth was distributed according to long established traditions, customs. For example, children would inherit their parents' property according to custom. There were bridal prizes where wealth in form of animals, cattle and all that would move from one homestead to the other. And then the wife would move from her mother's place to the husband's place. And this was according to custom. There were other traditional customs that governed how wealth was to be distributed. This traditional economic system is rigid. It resists change. It resists innovation and hence does not encourage economic growth. Things remain as they are. When we address this system, it is important to think about people like the Maasai of Kenya and Tanzania. The traditional Maasai, not the modern Maasai. The traditional Maasai, though I can be looked as these kind of people we are talking about. In South Africa, especially in Botswana, we had the Bushmen. Again, they would fall in this category. The Aborigines of Australia. These are the kind of communities that we're talking about. And that is how they used to address the question of allocating the scarce resources to satisfy their unlimited wants. The other economic system is a command economic system. This system is also referred to as the centrally planned economic system. In a command economic system, there is a central authority, i.e., the government. And the government is involved in the allocation of the scarce resources. It answers the four economic questions. Question of what, how, and whom, and distribution. The question of what to produce, that is the question of what. Again, in a command economic system, the government is the one that determines what is to be produced. It will decide on the roads to be built, the schools to be built, hospitals, etc. So the government decides on what is to be produced. The question of how to produce. Again, the government decides on the methods of production to use to produce what needs to be produced. It will decide on whether to use capital-intensive methods of production or labor-intensive methods of production. In most less developed countries like Botswana, Kenya, etc., you find that the government sometimes, in most chooses to use labor-intensive techniques of production, where more labor is used instead of capital. The idea here is to maximize on the scarce resources. Labor is plenty in these countries, and these countries do not produce capital in large quantities, so they prefer to use labor-intensive methods of production. In Botswana, for example, there are the cleaning of roads. This is done by labor, human labor. Yes, roads are cleaned using hands, not machines. While on the other hand, if you go to countries like Japan, they will use machinery to vacuum clean their roads. Trucks with vacuum cleaners will move around the city, cleaning the city, because they have plenty of capital. So the government decides on how to produce, how to combine the factors of production. The question of whom, again, in a command economy, the government determines who gets what is to be produced. The government will decide on where to construct a school, which targets certain people, for example. The final question of distribution of wealth, the government again comes in. It decides on how wealth is to be distributed. It determines on how wealth is to be distributed. It uses various methods to influence the distribution of wealth. For example, taxation. It will tax, for example, rich people more than the poor people. And this will, in effect, improve the allocation of wealth between the rich and the poor. It will invest in areas that are poor, like rural areas. It will build roads to attract investors there. And this will help in narrowing the gap between rich areas and poor areas. So the distribution of wealth will be influenced. The government will use different methods, but different policies to influence the distribution of wealth. So in a command economy, the economy is governed by a central authority, and therefore command systems are also called centrally planned systems. The government takes all resource allocation decisions. This system was advocated by people like Karl Marx. They supported this system very much. We'll talk more about their ideas. Now, the other economic system is the market economic system. A market economic system is a system where market forces determine the allocation of scarce resources to satisfy the limited wants of the people. Before we describe this system, it is important to understand what a market is by looking at the conditions that exist in such a system. In a market, for us to talk about a market, there must be at least one potential buyer and seller of goods or services. The seller must have something to sell. The buyer must have the means with which to purchase it. The market price must be determined. The agreement between the two must be protected by law or by tradition. Market economic systems are often called capitalistic systems. As I've just said, in a market economic system, the forces of demand and supply determine the allocation of the scarce resources to satisfy the unlimited wants of the people. Such a system will have certain characteristics. The ownership of property is by the private people. Most factors of production are privately owned. We are using most, but we can separate a pure market from non-pure market system. If it's a pure market system, then all the factors of production will be owned by the private sector. There is individualism in such a system where everybody is selfish. For example, the employer wants to get the maximum from the employee. The employee wants to get value for their sweat. The customer wants to get value for their money, etc. There are private freedoms. There are freedoms of association, worship, etc. Decision making is decentralized. And in a pure market capitalism, there is no government intervention. Competition is very, very stiff. There is perfect competition. And prices are determined by the market forces of demand and supply. Adam Smith is regarded as the father of market capitalism, and we'll talk about him in more details later on. Now, the market system addresses the four economic questions, just like the other systems. The question of what, that is what to produce in a market economic system, the producers will produce what consumers are willing and able to buy. And on the other hand, they will supply what they can supply profitably. Anything that cannot be supplied profitably will not be supplied by this system. The question of how, that is how to produce, the factors of production will have to be combined in the most efficient manner possible. Remember, we have said in a market economic system, there is very stiff competition. The prices of various factors of production will affect their decisions, e.g., the methods of production to use. Anybody who does not use the resources in the most efficient way will not survive in a market economic system. So the resources will have to be maximized on. The most efficient methods of production will have to be used. The question of whom, that is who gets the goods that are produced, in a market economic system, it's survival for the fittest. Those people who have the purchasing power are the ones who will get the goods and services that are produced. And finally, the question of distribution of wealth will be governed by the people who possess the factors of production. The owners of the factors of production will get the wealth. Finally, we have a mixed economic system. This is where a wide variety of economic systems coexist and are successful. In a mixed economic system, we have elements of tradition, command, and market. The question of what to produce will be addressed by certain features of tradition, features of government, and market economic systems. For example, there will be certain goods that will be produced according to custom. So we will see some goods that are produced according to custom, like keeping of animals, like cows and goats and chicken, especially in countries like Africa, has been tradition, that is according to tradition. We also find the government coming in and deciding on certain goods that are to be produced, roads, schools, etc. And then we see some other goods and services being produced according to the market forces. We see supermarkets, modern supermarkets, supplying what people want and what they can supply profitably. So the three come together. Again, the question of how we'll combine custom, that is how to produce custom methods. Some methods will be determined by the government, the command, and others by the market forces. The question of whom, again, it will be, we see goods, some people getting goods according to custom. Yes, we'll see some goods being produced for home consumption. Some goods will, for home consumption by the members of the family. Some goods will be given to those people the government decides to give according to custom, to command. And there will be market forces determining who gets some goods, those who can afford. Yes. The question of distribution, again, we will see some custom elements in it, wealth being distributed according to customs, such as inheritance. We will see the government coming in and influencing the distribution of wealth, and we also see market forces influencing distribution of wealth. So in a mixed economic system, all the systems work hand in hand, but we find that the mixture differs. In reality, no economy is purely tradition, market, or command. All economies are a mixture of the above, although one of these mechanisms normally dominate. Botswana economy is a mixed economy. Kenya economy is a mixed economy. Tanzania economy is a mixed economy. So is Uganda. Yes. The only difference is that the mixture differs, and we have some mixed economies which are more capitalistic than centrally planned, e.g. Britain or America. The mixture may change, such as what happened in the former Soviet Union, where there was a lot of command and no market, very little market, but now the mixture is changing. So economists choose what is good from each and every system and come up with a mixed economic system. So mixed economies combine the advantages of market, planned, and traditional systems and try to avoid the disadvantages of each of these systems. A good example of the market disadvantage is a market failure, which we'll talk about later. For example, where there is imperfect competition. In this case, the government gets involved through the public sector. This economic system was highlighted by John Keynes. He advocated for this economic system. Thank you for watching this video. Please remember to click on the like and the subscribe button below. The book is on special at Amazon.com for only $1.99 US. Feel free to give your comment and keep tuned for the next video.